And good afternoon, everybody. This is Marcus Hanscom. I'm the Director of Graduate Admission at Roger Williams University in Rhode Island and also the Interim Technology Chair for NAGAP. And I'm joined today by Cammie Baker-Clancy. She's from Empire State College in New York, where she's the Director of Graduate Outreach and Admission. And so we're here to talk to you a little bit more about how to develop a proposal for our upcoming conference. So it'll be our 30th annual conference, so it's a big year for us, a big anniversary, and we'll be holding that in Salt Lake City, as you know, so we're really excited for that. As we go through the session, by all means, feel free to ask any questions that you have. You'll see on the right side of your screen there's a questions box, and if you could do me a favor and just say hi or okay or something in the questions box, let us know you can hear us and also see the presentation. That would be great. Just want to make sure we don't have any technical issues as we go through. So you'll just see questions on the right side and just enter that if you can. So great. So I see a couple of people have responded there, so we can move forward. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to let us know, and we'll just tell you a little bit more about how to successfully put together a proposal. I know some of you may have presented before. For others of you, it could be a new experience for you, and really encourage you to do that. And the more members we have, and certainly the more diversity in background and the types of topics that we have, the better. So we're happy to have you and excited that you'll be hopefully participating as a presenter. So just quickly, we'll talk a little bit about, who we are, talk to you a little bit about some of the logistics of the conference itself, get into some formatting and requirements for what we're looking for as presenters. Virtually all of our presenters at the conference are volunteer that are members of the organization or affiliated with the organization in some way. Sometimes we have vendors presenting for us or outside guests that we invite in to speak, so it's a variety of folks. But we do rely on our expertise of our members to really support what we do. We'll also talk about the various session formats that we offer and how you can really evolve your topic from conceptual idea to proposal. And what I will say is, feel free to use Cammie or myself, or we can connect you with others on the board or other members of NAGAP who have presented for a while. If you need help kind of developing an idea, we'd be happy to help you with that. Also talk about how to approach your audience and optimizing topics and takeaways, and then ask any questions that you might have, and we'll be happy to answer them for you at that time. So the important kind of nuts and bolts of it all, that we're going to Salt Lake City. That'll be April 19th to the 22nd. We're staying at the Grand America Hotel, and if you haven't been to Salt Lake, it's a fantastic hotel. It's really impressive. It was built for the Olympics when they were held there in Salt Lake, so definitely take a look at that online if you'd like. We were really excited. A few of us got a chance to kind of test it out last year, and we're really impressed with the property, so I think you'll be happy on where we're at and all the great things that Salt Lake City has to offer. We will have the call for proposals posted on our NAGAP website and send you an email about that as well. And you'll use our system we use called Presys, and there will be a login for you there where you can put in your proposal. And there's a lot of different questions that you'll be answering that we'll go over during the session today. The deadline to submit your proposal for the conference is September 26th, so we know that's well in advance. But that actually, there's a lot of planning that goes into the conference and making sure that we have the right topics and we organize the schedule appropriately, give you the time that you need, especially if you choose to present a 2-hour topic, which we'll talk to you a little bit more about. So there's a lot of logistical pieces that go into that to make sure we have a really high quality conference. So that's why that deadline is fairly early, to make sure that we have enough planning time to make sure it's a really good conference. Be sure to register for the conference. You do have to register as an attendee once that conference registration opens. I believe it's generally January when that opens up, so we can find that out specifically for you. But you'll get an email, and of course it'll be all over our website and social media, so you'll see that in there. But we do require all of our presenters to register for the conference. Our goals for the sessions are really to align with the theme for each of our conferences, and in this year the theme is measuring success. And what we had done with the Education Committee, it's a large committee that's part of NAGAP with a cross group of folks that are from private, public institutions, various sizes, and a lot of different backgrounds, and we really identified where we thought graduate enrollment management was going. And so this year we're kind of at a point where we've talked about graduate enrollment management evolving over the past few years and the various pieces of that. And now this year talking about how can we take what we've learned and implemented in growing GEM and now turn that into something where we can measure how successful we were. And whether that be success on our marketing or admissions operations issues, or it's financial aid, or it's connecting alumni with our programs, or developing student services. how can we provide session topics that really lend themselves well to measuring success? So that's our theme for the conference, and we'll repeat that ad nauseum throughout the whole session here many times. But you should really focus on things that are focused on alumni outcomes or could be return on investment. So for all of those of you that are involved with marketing, as many of us are, return on investment is important. Success stories, why a program worked or it didn't, what do we really define as success? And I think that's something that NAGAP is still starting to wrap its mind around. I think it's important for us to include the membership as much as possible. And so if you have a topic that relates to how we can really evaluate our whole system, how the whole ecosystem of GEM is going, that's important. So anything like that is certainly helpful. Cammie is going to talk to you a little bit more about the educational domains. We try to align our educational offerings within domains so that we cover a variety of topic areas and categories that meet all the needs of our members. So she'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And that's all based on some significant research and feedback that we've taken from our NAGAP members to make sure that we're covering all topics that are really relevant and feed into that graduate enrollment management idea. So you can identify that topic of choice that you have within those domains. So they don't have to necessarily be the domain. In most cases, they aren't. But find something that fits kind of within that general idea, and that's kind of what we're looking for. And again, along the lines of the theme of measuring success. So when we create the call for proposals, we really analyze data, and as a former education committee member, I can tell you how arduous that process is. We really look through stacks and stacks of evaluations from our various professional development institutes, our conference feedback, things that we've solicited from video feedback or emails that we've gotten from people, various surveys we've done for research, member surveys, profiles, the salary survey. So there's a lot of things that we pulled together to create the domains and create kind of our calls for proposals to make sure that we're getting the right topics for our members. We also have a number of board initiatives and goals that the board does every so often. We do a strategic planning generally every 5 years or so, and I know the new board just undertook that strategic planning initiative a couple of weeks ago in Chicago, so I'm sure there'll be some new things coming out of the new board. Our research committee has been very active in obviously defining GEM, so for those of you who have been in NAGAP for some time, you're probably very familiar with the various research that's been done on really kind of redefining our whole industry and our field around a lot of what our new work is looking like, because we have kind of a new normal around enrollment management as opposed to admissions or a marketing function and what we do. And then we also have our various education committee meetings, and we've the last several years had 2 education committee summits where we've brought in the committee to a certain location and met for 2 days and really hashed through all these various pieces that we have and looked through best practices and success stories. So a lot of work has gone into making sure that this proposal process is really covering the gamut of what we need to figure out to make a high-quality conference. So a lot of work goes into making sure that everyone is happy and finding a lot of value from our annual conference. So we hope that you'll be participating, and certainly we hope to see you in Salt Lake. So with that said, I've talked enough. I'm going to pass over to Cammie and more about the domains.
Thanks, Marcus. And this is the first time Marcus and I have been doing this together, so I'm very happy to be on here today with you. I'm the education chair now for 2016-18, and so this is kind of our first go-round with the annual conference, and we were very happy to have the theme of measuring success be kind of our focus this year. As Marcus mentioned before, the Education Committee really identified 7 domains that we really feel cover the whole graduate student life cycle and comprise GEM. So when you're considering developing a proposal for the annual conference, really think in terms of the theme and use that thread of measuring success, if you can, within your proposal. We really want to be a little bit more results and outcomes focused for our conference this year. We also like to keep in mind weaving, ethical and or legal considerations into some of our topics, and this is going to lend itself well to some topics more than others. But for example, if you were doing a presentation under the admissions operations domain, you might consider ethical questions that might arise in the admissions review, for example, of applications. Or if you were more focused on a student service area proposal, you might look at ethical or legal considerations that might come up in licensure or certification programs, for example. And one other thing that we've noticed has started to come up and be a little bit of more concern is the ethical and legal issues that are surrounding social media. So when you're looking at the domain of recruitment and marketing, if you were to do a focus in that area, what are some ethical considerations too that you might come across? Next one, Marcus, if you could. Here are really a breakdown of the topics related to the domains. We put in a few examples just to give you an idea of you know, some topics that we're thinking about for the upcoming annual conference. And you'll see, for example, under financing education, it's really not just about, or it could be, but it's not just about financial aid distribution and the impact on yield and retention. There's other topics too now that are really coming to the forefront, things like financial literacy for graduate students. So it's not just about covering cost, but it's a long-term view. So as the student follows through the life cycle and actually ends up graduating and becomes an alum, what kind of debt is that student saddled with, and how have they managed that, and how are they moving forward? So it's a little bit different take on what we normally think as falls under the topics of financing education. And certainly something like writing and securing grants to support graduate students. What success have you had in that area? People are really looking for other avenues and other resources for their graduate students because of the limited amount of funds that are out there. Another good example would be under admissions operations. Admissions years ago used to be more about you know, ticking off the boxes and looking at GPAs and test scores and things like that. But really in recent years, it's really kind of moved towards more of a holistic review in a lot of different areas. So people are really looking at admissions as more as an academic review. And how do you assess someone's program fit? And how will that then maybe influence retention? How would you measure that? Were these students retained? What was your process to begin with? So again, that's a way to weave in the theme of measuring success. Under student services, this is actually a really broad topic, because what success have you had in integrating services or collaborating with other offices? You know, and if you've implemented a GEM model, what has been the success of that, or how have you assessed what parts of that have been successful? And as Marcus mentioned before, this is something we're very interested in because there's not a lot of research out there yet on GEM models. So the more that we can build that from our membership, the richer we're all going to be for it, and I think it'll really broaden out all of our publications and our research, and as we move forward, you know, our offerings at annual conference and our institutes as well as our webinars. Let's see. Want to go to the next slide, Marcus? Great. And again, a few more of our domain names: alumni alumni relations and engagement, enrollment modeling and strategic planning, and then career staff and personal development. Under enrollment modeling and strategic planning, that's also an area that's really evolved. While we have a lot of folks that are doing predictive modeling, depending upon what types of programs they're offering at the graduate level, and that's certainly a huge aspect of GEM, we're also seeing that more of our GEM professionals are being called on to be involved in new program development, where they're really collaborating with faculty. So as a GEM professional's duties really have changed, we're seeing people are really more multifaceted. They're involved in this aspect of graduate education where they're providing labor statistics or identifying growth areas for their faculty, reporting back on student demand that they're seeing. So this is a kind of a new area, but more and more of us are being drawn into it. And that's a way that we can kind of, just an example of how we could cover that aspect of GEM as well. And career, staff, and professional development, we have to realize that it's not just all about skill development anymore. Now we're really assessing things. So using things like a 360 review to assess employee performance and things of that nature, or other types of tools, are going to be very important. Some of these areas we do need people to really focus on more. We tend not to get a lot of proposals on financing education, on student service models, even though we're getting more and more submissions from student service areas. But alumni relations and engagement, and certainly career, staff, and professional development, these are areas we'd really like to beef up. We tend to get a lot of proposals on recruitment and marketing and admissions operations primarily, and then certainly enrollment modeling and strategic planning. But we'd like to really incorporate more of the GEM areas and our domains in the annual conference. Mark has mentioned before too, most all of our workshops do come from our own members, but we do invite professionals who have expertise in certain areas to come and present, as well as vendor presentations. So we will assess this too to see what we might need to beef up in certain areas. But do consider all these different domains when you're considering a proposal. And now we're going to talk about the options that we have for presentations. This can get a little confusing, and I think the two areas that people confuse most are going to be the panel discussions and the rapid fire sessions. Really, if you're thinking of doing a panel, try to limit it to 3 or 4 participants and a moderator, because really when you do a panel discussion, you want to have a specific issue or topic that you're going to discuss, and then have the moderator pose questions to the panel. And the panelists then can give their answers based on their frame of reference and the type of institution that they might come to, their kind of background, etc. And also could then open it up for questions or comments from the audience. The rapid fire sessions are the sessions that would have a panel of maybe 3 or 4 people who give individualized presentations on a particular topic, related topic hopefully, but it's more individualized, where the panelists actually have a segment that they're presenting. So when you're thinking what you might want to do if you're going to do a rapid fire session or a panel discussion, really look at those descriptions. When you go into the proposal form, there is a link in there if you're looking at the type of format that you want to choose with the descriptions in there. So you can look at the descriptions really as a refresher before you decide which way you're going to go. Certainly the typical presentation style is usually 1 or 2 presenters, and we don't want to do death by PowerPoint, but there are other ways that you can incorporate some more visual interest into your presentations, and also try to engage the audience a little bit more. That's what our evaluations from the annual conferences and our other educational opportunities that we offer too typically always say. They want a little bit more opportunity for participation, and also they want some takeaways so that they can really feel like they've gotten some real good information that they can use. These special interest forums are a little bit different, and I think they're want to go back? Sorry, Marcus, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The special interest forums, I think, are a really good opportunity for folks too, because they're more roundtable discussion, and they're led by facilitators, so it is a more interactive type of a format. So again, really take a look at these before you submit. We're really looking for you to share info, best practices, success stories. Again, we're really focused on the outcomes. And there's a couple other questions that we've incorporated into the proposal too that will help us really narrow down what's going to be the best format for people. Sometimes we get folks that submit multiple presentations, or we have the same topic submitted several times, and in those cases we might try to consolidate some people and maybe create a panel out of a couple of presentations. So do keep that in mind when you're submitting your proposal. When we looked at the approach years ago, and this probably happens still at other conferences as well, where sometimes the workshops are kind of set up based on levels. An intro level person, a mid-range career person, a seasoned professional, and we realized long ago that the elements and the evolution of GEM really kind of runs the gamut. Someone might have a lot of years of experience, but their focus might be more narrow than someone who might be in a mid-career range. So rather than to identify the topics in that way, we really broke it down and used tactical, operational, and strategic. So you'll notice when you go into the proposal that you'll have an opportunity to pick one of those areas where you think your presentation is going to fit most. Tactical certainly is the nuts and bolts type of a presentation, the really using, doing, and implementing. Operational is going to be more about your development, your process, how you plan and organize to implement a particular program or new I'm trying to think of a good word, but you know what I mean. How would you plan and organize a new system that you might be utilizing in your institution? For example, we're going through right now assessing and kind of planning out how we're going to implement a new CRM system. So different types of things like that would be considered more operational. And then strategic. Again, we're moving back to our measurement theme where you're really analyzing and evaluating and then coming to the final decision of how you're going to decide on what is the best route for you. So when you're thinking about the kind of proposals you're going to submit, these are the audience kind of approaches that we're looking for. Now this is just the overview of the proposal application, and it's very straightforward. We have not made many changes to it this year. If you have presented or submitted a proposal previously, it's very similar to what we've had before. We have had 2 additions to the questions in the proposal. One is a question on diversity of presenters. We really wanted to get at a balanced representation for the topic that people are going to present. So we're looking at institutional affiliation, like what type of institution are you from? Are you from a big university, a research one? Are you from a small comprehensive college? Are you from a public institution, a private institution? Do you work in a specific school of or institution-wide? What career stage are you at? We look at ethnicity and gender, just to look at, again, the wide kind of diverse opinions people are going to have throughout the country, depending on what type of institution that you work for and your background, that are going to influence the topic. We also added a section on presentations and publications. We'd really like to see what our members have done in the last year or two as far as presentations or publications. This information is really going to help us really identify experts in the field for other potential presentations. So it's a way for us too to collect information about our members to see what you've been doing, how you've been contributing to the field of GEM, and then we can try to identify people for future presentations, whether it's, again, at one of our professional development institutes, if it's at the annual conference or for a webinar, etc. We kind of do that ad hoc a little bit and have done that over the years, but this is our first concerted effort so that we can kind of build our database of our members and their expertise areas. So I think that's a big plus. So those are two little changes that I think are going to make a good impact this year for the proposal. So again, we're going to also look at the approach. So again, as I mentioned before, that's the tactical, operational, or strategic. And the abstract is important because that's what's going to go in the guidebook. That's what's going to attract people to your particular session. So it's important for you to really make sure that that mirrors what you're going to present, maybe reflects the theme of the conference. Sometimes that's hard to do without getting a little kitschy with your titles and things like that. But the abstract really should come to the meat of what you're going to be presenting. And make sure it's very clear what the learning objectives are probably going to be within that abstract, so people know what they're going to take away from this. I mentioned before collaboration. Be prepared to be open to the idea of collaborating if we get multiple proposals on the same topic area. Certainly everybody has maybe a little bit a different take of what they might be proposing, but we've had this in the past, and actually I've done this in the past where I was asked to be on a panel with two other folks that I had not met before, and it was actually the greatest networking and learning opportunity because we did a couple of conference calls and we Skyped a few times, and boom, met at the conference and presented, and it was really great to be able to do that. Again, really great networking possibility. If you want to collaborate on a proposal and you really don't know how you're going to connect with people, here's some ideas that we've kind of thrown out there that have worked before in the past. Our NAGAP Facebook page is great. People can post a little note out there. I'm interested in doing a session on that particular topic. Anybody from a similar institution or who works in this particular area that has done anything new in this area and wants to collaborate with me, please, message me. And certainly you could do that through LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social media. The chapters are great too. We've had a lot of folks that kind of got together in their local chapters and were able to put together proposals. You could have a vendor partner. This is different than a vendor presentation, so I really want to emphasize that. When you do a vendor partner presentation, it's really more about how you implemented a system, or how you used a product, how you worked with the vendor that provided that product, and then the outcomes of that. So it's not a vendor sales opportunity. And that's important to, again, reinforce, because we do have a whole other opportunity for vendors to, present sessions on their own, clearly marked as a vendor presentation. So if you're going to partner with a vendor, please make sure that you present it in the correct way, where they're part of your presentation, but they're not. It's not about selling their particular system or product. And other things here too, like professional listservs, or ask us for recommendations, because we have a lot of connections and might know of somebody that might be a perfect fit for the topic area that you're interested in. And I'm going to throw in our conference education chair, Leslie Brzezina, because Leslie's also a great person. She's been doing this a couple conferences. She's a great person to also hit up for ideas. And then the learning objectives, as we talked about before, they really need to be aligned to the theme and the educational domain. So really they need to tie into all the different aspects of GYM. Really focus on maybe 3 to 5 learning objectives. If you get too many, we're really not going to have enough time during your session to really focus in on those. But do make sure that you can come up with at least 3 to 5 learning objectives. People should understand what those are. They should be really clear, actionable, measurable. They need to integrate with the key takeaways or assignments. As we like to say, we like to assign homework for people so that they can go back and really utilize what they've learned at the conferences. And then when you go to formulate this information, we really like you to use action verbs. So some examples we have on the next slide really kind of reinforce that. And this might be common sense stuff that we all know, but I think when you're getting ready to do a proposal, it's great to, reinforce that you want to make sure that you use more action kind of verbs so that people know what they're going to get from your session. So you can see evaluate social media tools or develop strategies or analyze graduation data. Again, kind of a common sense thing, but we like to reinforce that. And then how are our proposals evaluated? We have rubrics that we designed for each type of educational session, and they can be found in Precis on the NAGAP website. So if you go into Precis to submit a proposal, there is a link within that information about the rubrics so you can look at them. And Marcus, in another slide or two, is going to go over the sections of the rubric to give you a really good sense of how things are going to be evaluated. Again, we look at the experience of the submitters. You do not have to be somebody that's done a million presentations, but we do look at your experience, what area you're working in, how that might inform the proposal that you're submitting. And the key elements on the rubrics are rated on a 1 to 5 point scale. So we're looking at, currency, appropriateness, the outcomes, the well-defined topic and abstract, which I think is key, and it's something I definitely look at, and then the presenter qualifications, certainly. And then lastly, as we mentioned previously, the deadline for submission is September 26th. You're going to get reminders about this because we really want to drum up, get this on everybody's radar. It's kind of hard to do that during the summer, as you guys know, and we thank you for attending today. In October, November, after the submission deadline, we're going to be doing the evaluation of the proposals, and we hope to get then notification back to submitters in early December. And you might want to know who evaluates the proposals. We have a large committee. It not only includes the conference chair, this year is going to be Jacqueline Farina, the conference chair-elect, the conference education chair, the education committee chair, and then our education committee members. So it's around about 12 to 16 people that review the proposals and rate them for submission. So it's and we try also to get a good cross-section, because our education committee members, for example, not only have a core group but also contain representatives from all of our different committees. So we do really have a cross-section of folks that are working on this to really get good perspective when we're evaluating the proposals. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marcus so he can kind of go over the evaluation rubric for you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cammie. So one thing about on that last slide that Cammie was mentioning as far as all these people reading is that every session proposal gets a read by at least 2 people, if not 3 or 4. So you get a lot of different perspectives. So you don't get swayed by say if I was the only one reading and my only perspective is admissions, and I think, oh, that student services thing, that doesn't sound interesting, but I don't do student services, but that student service reader on the other side of the committee says, oh, that's a great topic. Then we've got somebody to balance that out. So there's a pretty good mix of folks that can really evaluate and get a lot of sets of eyes on each of these to make sure everybody gets a fair shot at getting their session proposal approved for the conference. So Cammie mentioned the various categories that are utilized on the rubrics, and I'll just go quickly through these just so you know what to expect. But this is what the rubric actually looks like that we're providing to all of the readers. And the important thing is here is that on the currency and importance rather, and appropriateness of the topic, we're looking for something that's really kind of cutting edge, it's relevant to what's happening right now. You know, right, for example, CRM systems aren't new anymore. So if you were talking about why you need a CRM system, that's an important topic. There's still some relevancy to that. So you could argue that certainly many offices need to find that out. But it's also no longer new. It's not fresh and sexy and cutting edge. So that's just something to keep in mind, that you want a topic that's really relevant, that sells, and it's something that people are going to want to hear about and something that they're using in their regular work. I always encourage presenters and those of you that are considering putting a proposal together, is it something that you, if you read the abstract in the brochure at the conference or the book at the brochure conference, would say, yeah, I really want to go to that. And if you can't really read that and go, yeah, that sounds really good, then I'd reconsider your topic. Because sometimes while we may be experts in our own way in certain topics, and you know, I've dealt with CRMs for 10 years, but for me to present on CRMs, it might be just because I have expertise in that, but then if I read it, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'd care about watching that. So make sure you think about that. Try to put yourself in the audience shoes to make sure it's something you'd want to do. We also want you to think about purpose outcomes, and this is really talking about kind of takeaways and things that if you're an audience member at your session, what value is that audience member going to derive from coming to your session? So really have some kind of clear ideas of what the goals of your session are, what learning objectives you hope people will achieve, and you heard Cammie mention, you know, 3 to 5 learning objectives is really all you need. Now you can have assignments all you want, but the learning objectives, if there are 3 to 5 things that you really want to hit home, focus on those things. We always talk about, can you do, you know, 20 things at 100%? Probably not, but can you do 5 of them? Maybe. So you want to make sure that you really become focused on the things that you can provide best and make sure that people walk away and go, that was a really great session. The next piece is the having a well-defined topic and abstract. So you want things to be clear. You want people to know what it's about. I can't tell you how many session topics I've seen over the years or abstracts where it wasn't immediately clear what the session was about. And particularly as we were reviewing proposals, you want things that are clear, and oftentimes those would get rejected or there'd be some questions. Sometimes we even go back to a proposal and to a submitter and say, what did you mean by this? If you put something clear together, you're more than likely going to get, you're more likely to get accepted, for one, but also it's going to be clearer for your audience. So you want to make sure that that's all very clear and your session format is aligned with the goals of what you're trying to achieve. If your goal is to be really interactive and have questions asked and things, you know, panel formats work well for those. If you're trying to cover maybe 5 different topics in small bites and even different speakers, then maybe a rapid fire session can be working well for that. You're not going to want to sit up there and present for 45 minutes and call it a rapid fire. They don't match. So you want to make sure you get something that matches your topic and is very clear on what people are going to get from it. And also make sure that abstract not only is clear, but is it engaging. Cammie spoke to this a little bit. I mean, if I were to write an abstract that says, come to the session to learn about recruitment strategies for graduate students. Okay, so we know what that means. But if you instead write it as, come and find out how XYZ school grew their population by 60% last year because of certain recruitment tactics, and learn how you can do it too, now all of a sudden that's a little bit more engaging. There's a need. When you're thinking about, I mean, all of us are marketers at heart in one way or another, so when you're thinking about communicating a need, if you write in your abstract what the clear demonstrated need is of your audience, and it resonates with them, they're going to want to come to your session. They're going to learn more. So obviously you'd rather have a full room than an empty one. So make sure your abstract is engaging. We also are now looking at qualifications of our presenters. And this is something that's relatively new, but again, it's not designed to cut people out that don't have experience. It's really just to try to understand where your knowledge base is coming from. Have you worked in grad enrollment for a while? You know, if we want to bring in a speaker on financial aid, are we bringing in somebody that's never done financial aid before, or are we bringing in somebody that's done financial aid for 10 years and just started in grad admissions? So there's a lot of different things that, and again, this is just one spoke of the wheel, but we want to make sure that we're looking at the background of all of our speakers and make sure that there's strong relevancy and knowledge base coming from each of our presenters. And it's particularly challenging when we've got, you know, a 2,000 member organization and you're picking out from proposals from hundreds of people that have varied experience, and it could be anywhere all over the gamut. We've had young professionals present. My first time presenting, I was only just over a year into graduate admission. So I was relatively new when I presented, and I was thankful for that opportunity. But if you have, depending on the audience and depending on your topic, it may or may not be more relevant to have depth of experience in a particular area. So quickly, some final thoughts. I know we're getting toward the end of our time together. So make sure that you have actionable takeaways for your audience. That's one thing I've done for years, and thankfully I've received good feedback, and I know a lot of the other presenters that have done this as well have gotten strong feedback, is that when you walk in to a session, not only do you get good information, and oftentimes if it's just a panel, or if it's just a presentation and it's a PowerPoint, you're listening to somebody, but is there anything that you can take back? And that day, that Monday after you get back from the conference, is there anything you took from the conference that you can do that day to see some results? And so I often provide homework assignments or some sort of takeaway. And if you can give folks a couple at the very least, if not a list of things that they can take away, heck, if you can put together a handout that has a list of maybe assignments that kind of culminate from everything you've talked about in your PowerPoint session, that's something that you can provide to people. It's a really tangible takeaway with some steps that they can provide. I'd love to see some more sessions where somebody does, I know, for example, Tony Frager from Direct Development does this, where he's done a series of presentations over the years that have built on previous years. Perhaps you might have a series of assignments that you give one year, and then the next year, if you're presenting again, you might follow up with people and say, how did this work for you? And if we're talking about measuring success, that's a great opportunity for you to say, okay, we're going to do this year, and next year we're going to follow up and see how you did. And that might be a great way to tie in the theme of the conference and the things that we're trying to do. So you see on the screen a couple of examples of takeaways, but things, again, with actionable, so verbs that we're using, so developing surveys, getting responses, might be measuring success of an alumni program, create task forces that really create collaboration with your faculty and building new programs, maybe talk about what that looks like, maybe run a success metric with the faculty, find out what they thought of the process, and there could be any number of ways you can measure, but add those things in as part of your takeaways. Why should you submit a proposal? There's a lot of people that have been presenting many years, myself included, and I can't tell you how I've grown innumerably in both personal and professional ways, and it's helped me get professional opportunities that I haven't had in the past. It's helped me with my current role because I've only been here a little over a year, and I fully believe that NAGAP is one of the cornerstones of why I was able to get my new position that I love. So I think it's really a good professional opportunity for growth, especially for those of you that are in maybe entry-level or mid-level positions that are looking to grow, that might want to get a new role and grow your own skill sets. You can connect with a lot of other people. I mean, the networks that you'll find at these conferences, anybody that's been obviously knows the value of the connections that you'll make with people. It's getting your name and a face out in front of people. Maybe even you get involved with committees in NAGAP or get involved on the board. If I hadn't presented, I wouldn't have gotten connected with some of the people that I've been very close with in NAGAP. So that's opened up a lot of doors. And for your school, there's a tremendous amount of benefit because you're gaining skills, whether it be, I mean, we're all presenting anyhow, but you're getting presentation skills from professional level. You're exposing your school to a much broader audience. You're exposing your school's initiatives or skill sets to a broader audience, and you become a thought leader on that. So those are all very helpful. And of course, you can add this all to your resume, add to your LinkedIn or your Facebook, connect with other people. Use it as something in your performance evaluation. In my last institution, I had all of my presentations included in my annual performance evaluation. That was immensely helpful with moving forward there. And you might even be able to get some coverage by your own school's media. Maybe they'll cover you in the school newspaper, or they put out a press release on what you're presenting on. Those are all things that your school can then really take a lot of pride in and promote outside of the institution. And that adds a lot of quality value to what you're doing with your institution. So those are some ways that you can also leverage getting permission to come, because I know a lot of folks have trouble either getting funding or the time to come to the conference, and those are all really valuable pieces of why you should be part of that, and certainly your supervisors should recognize that. It's critical to keep in mind that we're working in education, so we're obviously teaching in one way or another, but in what we're doing, make sure that when you're creating these proposals and you're presenting, that you're sharing data, you're backing things with research, you're providing opportunities to process, perhaps you're engaging the audience in some way in talking about the content of your session a little bit, finding some sort of meaning, finding a way to resonate with the audience that you have there, discuss those things, and then give them opportunities to do work at home and maybe connect with you later on, provide your contact information, that kind of thing. Those networks are hugely important. You know, just earlier this week, I called a good friend of mine who formerly worked at Wes, who I had an international question for, and because I connected with him so many times at the NAGAP conference, I have him as a colleague that I can count on to answer questions. And there's so many more people I could list off that I've made similar connections with, and I think you'll find just by participating, you'll have the same types of opportunities. So just some last tips before we wrap up. Consider topics that are based on your strengths and expertise. If there's something that you have expertise in that you can collaborate with somebody else, Cammie talks a little bit about that. Reach out to any of us or to Leslie, and we'll be happy to try to connect you with other folks. Maybe you haven't presented before, or you're a little leery about building your session or topic. Just reach out to any one of us. We'd be happy to help build that. I'm happy to help co-present. I'm sure we can find others that want to do that as well. So just let us know. We're happy to help facilitate that in any way you can. Consider that learning level of your potential audience. This is something that our last education committee really discussed a lot, because we used to use that kind of beginner, intermediate, and advanced or expert levels. And those were kind of challenging because they weren't really relevant to the work that we were doing. We decided to go with the tactical, operational, and strategic, primarily because if you think of what you're doing in your offices, it could be as simple as having an admissions counselor that's doing entry-level work and really working the phones and emailing the students and processing applications. Or it could be an associate director or director level who's making the communication plan or doing some kind of lower level strategy or planning the budget. And then you might have a VP or a dean of graduate enrollment that's really doing that 30,000-foot strategy on adding new programs, or how do we assess retention and create new student services. So those things are on a very basic level, can be hierarchical within our organizational structures. But it could also be something like, if you're in an office like Cammie or myself, we're doing kind of that 30,000-foot view, but we're also doing that tactical stuff too. So I'm calling students, and I'm doing the marketing plans, and I'm in staff, and I have to come up with the next year's plan for what we're going to do operationally and with the marketing plan. So in a smaller office, we're doing all three of these things, whereas some of the bigger offices, you might have those more segmented. But the reality is, when we're presenting these topics, if somebody's going to talk about successful recruitment initiatives or operational strategies or something that are very tactical, then the person that's a director that's been doing it for 20 years that really needs to do that stuff will feel just as comfortable going there as a person that's a year out of undergrad and just started in graduate admission. Or we have some people that are doing strategic stuff that are only very new to their positions, but that's just the reality of what they have to do. So we really switched that around so that you can really wrap your head around the types of work we're doing, and not so much specific levels or how long you've been in the field or how experienced you are, and more so what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. Take the opportunity to put this into Word, basic stuff, proofread it, get input from your colleagues, send it to us if you have questions. We'll be happy to kind of bounce ideas off with you, and do that all before you go into Precis and pump that all in as your final document. You still have plenty of time. We have over nearly 2 months at this point until the deadline to provide your proposal. So certainly take some time to craft something that's good and has high value for the conference. Remember that your abstract will be printed in the conference program. I mentioned that to you. Make sure it's something that's engaging for your audience. And cite your experience in your bio that relates to your topic. If you're speaking on marketing to international students, talk about how you've worked in international admissions. If you're working in financial aid, talk about how you've done packaging before, or you've done innovative strategic financial aid distributions. So consider all those things and make sure that that's included in your bio, so that when people look on the website and they're preparing, as they get closer to the conference, all of our attendees can go into Presys and have a conference planner and identify which topics they want to hear about and which sessions they want to go to, and they can see your biographic information. So make sure that that's something that speaks to your topic. So we've covered a lot of ground. So at this point, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Cammie, if there's anything additional you'd like to add, certainly welcome that. And we'll wait a couple of minutes for folks to ask any questions. We will make this available to you, the PowerPoint, and we'll have the video posted to our YouTube channel. So I'll show you that in just a second, that login. And so at this point, we'll just take any questions you have. And a reminder on the theme, measuring success. I know we mentioned it a few times.
A few hundred times. But it's important, I think. If you go about creating your proposal and you have that in mind, it's easy for you to incorporate that into your session. So
here's a question. Is it possible to revise or amend a topic presented at a previous conference if it will meet the theme requirements? Cammie, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I think you could do that, certainly. But you definitely want to have updated information. You notice probably when you go to our conference, or if you attend other conferences too, that there are going to be topics that come up repeatedly because they're important topics that people are dealing with, each year. So if you presented previously, have updated information, and can now provide, some measurement, some outcomes analysis, I think you could do that, and we would probably welcome that.
Great, thanks, Cammie. I don't see any other questions right now, so you have Cammie and my contact information on the screen. Oh, good question. And Cammie, you can speak to this if you'd like. What is the 360 review?
See, I put that question. I probably shouldn't have put that topic in there. A 360 review, we've actually used it in the executive board too, for in a different capacity. But we use 360 review here at my institution. It's basically surveys when you're doing someone's performance evaluation. There are companies that provide these. Some people create their own, but it's basically a term to give the full picture of somebody when you're assessing them. So some institutions now are incorporating that kind of a 360 review into performance evaluations for people. So if you see that terminology out there, that's what I'm talking about. There's other tools as well, but that's just one example.
And for what it's worth, there's been a lot of interest among the membership for more sessions related to professional development, kind of career growth, mentoring, those types of things. So if any of you are thinking about those types of topics, and it could be even evaluations like the 360 review, we certainly would strongly encourage you to consider putting in a proposal for that, because we're looking to bolster some more of those sessions that really add some personal value to the attendees that help them not only in their work but in their future growth.
Mm.
So I think that's all our questions. The PowerPoint, as I mentioned, will be available. We'll send that out to everybody that's attended. And the video of this entire session will be posted to our YouTube channel at the URL that you see on the screen. If you have any questions, or if you want to collaborate, have any questions about the proposals, you can contact Leslie Brazina. She's the education chair. Or either one of us, as we mentioned, will be happy to help in any way you can. And if we can't answer it, we certainly know people that can help you answer it. So definitely reach out and don't be shy. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully in Salt Lake City in April. So we're really excited for that. I'm hoping the weather will be great, and a few of us will be trudging through national parks. So if any of you are hikers, so thanks so much for your time this afternoon and for joining Cammie and I, and we look forward to seeing your proposals.